Hi, thanks for that talk. That was quite interesting. That was very interesting. So I'm sympathetic to the idea that we should be so in the debate between the it from bit and the bit from it that it's really best cast as a debate about direction of priority, not about what exists absolutely. So like I like that. I'm sympathetic to that. And so this is not so much an objection, more along the lines of a comment. I think near the slide right before, the two main tasks slide. So I'm just wondering why, is it necessary to in order to explicate the from, or in order to talk about the from, do you need to actually settle the question of priority? Isn't that a separable question? Like, can't you talk about how you can reconstruct it from bit and vice versa, and talk about those relations without necessarily settling the question of priority? It's not so much that you shouldn't settle the question of priority, but I'm just wondering if these are separable questions, right? And that do they need to be joined in the way that it seems like you're suggesting?
Thanks a lot for the question. That's actually something I didn't think about, so it's thank you. I think so. Probably you're right that they do not need to come together. Probably the point is that we can distinguish two senses in which we can understand the from. There is some sort of epistemological sense, and that's something that comes very often in any of these similar discussions where people that talk about relations of priority engage with. Of course, there is always a sense of more kind of an epistemological sense also of priority. But then I think the claim that some people want to make, the ones I mentioned, like, again, I'm not in their mind, but I'm guessing some of the claim they want to make looks like more metaphysical, right? And if the claim, well, metaphysical, at least, about the world, not just about how we have access to one level or the other. And if they are about the word, then the from is something about the structure of the word. The word is such that the from is in one direction and not in the other one. And if the word has settled the direction, then it's a substantive issue which direction the word has settled. And you're right. I mean, it's not forced upon us, but I think it's a nice it's a nice question whether the starting from the epistemological question about the from, we can say interesting thing about the metaphysical relation. Yeah. But thank you.
I suppose I would say, in addition to what Cristian just said, in relation to what Cristian just said and what you said as a question, you are right. I think there is a sense in which perhaps on the technical end, at first at least, we might be just saying this can be written as instead of this from this. However, it's probably a practical first step to know what the connection formally can be, or at least semi-formally, before trying to establish priority either way. So I think even if it didn't go that far, this is a necessary step either way.
Thank you.
So we have time for a final question. So Vincenzo, please.
Oh, yes, thank you very much for your talk. I have a sort of perhaps a peripheral question. You speak about information, and I would like to understand which notion of information you have in mind. Probably something defined through Shannon-Weaver formalism, with an ontological character, as Dretske in his famous book Knowledge and the Flow of Information. We have in mind something which is sort of hypostatization of the notion of Shannon and Weaver, or there is some different reference when you speak about information?
I suppose, at least from the more technical end, speaking perhaps just personally, I view it in a sort of Shannon-esque light. For me, it's about what can be known and what can be extracted. And when I talk about states, you could think of those in Shannon terms, I guess, as what can be identified as what. Can you identify the bit string? What mappings can you apply to a bit string? Although here, okay, it's quantum mechanics, so it's slightly different and slightly broader. I still do view it in those sorts of terms. I don't know whether Cristian can give more philosophical feeling to what I've just said.
I think that well, thanks first, Vincenzo. I think as regards to that question, basically the technical answer. Well, first I agree with Richard, but the technical answer I believe is the correct one, in the sense that you first decide what framework you look at, and we decided which one for reasons that can be contested. We didn't say why, but basically because we believe it's a very well developed, and we might be mistaken on that, but it's a very nice framework to looking at that stuff. And of course, as regard to the question you were asking, we're going to rely on their use. And there's of course a more substantive philosophical issues, but that's not, at least at this stage, that's not something we want to address. And I hope we can address the issue we wanted to address independently from that one. I hope so. Thank you, though.